Oh my god, guys, this movie is incredible. I swear to you, I'm still fucking hyped, even though it's been days now that I've seen it, and I'm probably gonna see it again. It's hands down the best out of the three JJ films. It finally felt like a real Star Trek movie again. So if you haven't seen it, please see it. If you're a Trekkie, please see it. I mean, I can only recommend it. It's not as good as First Contact, which is my favorite Star Trek movie, but it's definitely up there with Motion Picture, Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, Generations, all the other films. It's definitely up there. It finally felt like a real Star Trek film. I mean, and it's not only because of all these tiny, deliberate hints, like, for instance, like when Scotty references, the giant green hand, or when, by the way, spoiler alert, or when, when they drink Saurian brandy and all that stuff, it's not only that, it's the way the crew interacts, the way, especially, Kirk and Spock, Kirk and McCoy, Spock and McCoy, the triad, but also like two of them each, interacting with each other. It's exactly how it's supposed to be. It feels exactly like in the original series. Basically, most of the movie, or all of the movie, in retrospect, the whole movie could basically be a prolonged TOS or TNG or Voyager episode to me. By the way, this whole swarm ship thing has also been done in Voyager, at least like Red Letter Media reminded me of that. So there are several cues in the story lines and elements of the story that are heavily inspired by previous episodes, but still, it's not like, again, with all the references and allusions, it's not like they just hit you over the head with it, or they steal something, or it's an original film. They're finally exploring, they're finally doing their own thing. Like the previous movie just ripped up Wrath of Khan, that was fucking stupid. So it's ironic. I mean, it finally feels like a Star Trek movie due to all of these things, but it's, on the other hand, it's also finally an original story. So how did they achieve that? Well, like I said, they got all these little references. Like I said, they got the way the film is set up. Like, there is a lot of action, of course, but there are also a lot of quiet moments and a lot of moments that focus on character development, and where something happens, something important happens even, or characters have to get through something important, whether it may be physically or psychologically or mentally, but and it's not like totally boring, but it isn't like fast-paced bam 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 explosions action either. So there are a lot of quiet scenes, a lot of conversations, even diplomacy in the beginning, and when Kirk and all the and Uhura talk to the villain and all that stuff throughout the film, and philosophy and all that stuff is in the movie. So that's there. That's the way that they achieved that. That's how they achieved it feeling like a Star Trek movie, but also like how the crew interacts, how it is shot, how it is filmed. There's one scene where I thought, am I watching TNG or what? Like, they approach this planet, and the Enterprise is in orbit, just basically like an establishing shot from TOS or TNG. How many times have we seen this? And then it pans to the bridge, and Kirk sits there like this, and basically like in TOS, and Spock looks at his monitor, and he says, planet class M, blah blah blah. He talks about how many life forms there are, and it's exactly like in TOS. The fact that you actually get to see the crew's quarters, that you actually get to see the warp effect from inside, and you recognize that it's not just like in the previous movies where it took 1 second from Earth to Kronos, for instance. You actually get to see it's a long journey. They're inside. You see the warp effect from inside. Kirk is talking to McCoy, and they drink Saurian brandy, like I said, from the same bottle. It's the exact same shape as the one that you often see in TOS that McCoy has in store and, gives to Kirk. And this weirdly shaped bottle with the red, cap on it. So it's tiny little details like that. Like I said, the way the crew interacts is exactly like it should be. The way it is written, the way it is shot, like I said, it makes you finally feel like you're watching a Star Trek movie again. The writers, the producers, the director, they actually know Trek, it seems to me. They actually know canon. Like, for instance, in the fact that the villain's motivation goes back to Enterprise, like Scott Bakula's Enterprise, that's fucking incredible. And that they actually acknowledge the Cindy War and the Romulan War and all that stuff, and the Makos. That was something that was established in Enterprise and was a tiny thing that I thought, wow, that's cool that they actually, you don't need to know what Makos are. I mean, they explain it in the film, but if you're, you understand the film, but if you're a Star Trek fan, you instantly recognize, I remember that. So that's fucking awesome. The Franklin, is obviously at least inspired by the NX class. It looks like sort of either a predecessor, which is supposed to be, I think, or a successor to the NX class, but I think it's supposed to be a predecessor. It's tiny little cues like that, visual cues, auditory cues, how the crew interacts, like I said a million times now, how it is shot, how the story unfolds, how it is set up with like the diplomacy, the philosophy, the way the fact that there are a lot of quiet scenes, and to me it felt like this, first third of the film, well, yeah, a little bit of action, but not that well. You get to spoilers, the Enterprise gets destroyed, but I feel like the most action, and that's where they lost me a little bit, is in the second third. There is only action, and it's so fast. That's why I have to see it a second time, because there are lots of things that I probably missed. I mean, you don't see it, you don't realize, you cannot perceive the whole of what happens on the screen, and that's a little distracting and disturbing and stupid, basically. And then in the third, it becomes less actiony. Well, it is still actiony, but that's where they got me again, basically. Also with the whole, with the gravitational pull, that was interesting. And first, when you get to see Idris Elba, using this weird device, and you see, you get to see, hey, maybe he isn't an alien. It's this weird device changes the way he looked, and then at the end he's almost back to normal. And this plot twist that Krall is Edison, that's something honestly I didn't expect. That I heard in previous podcasts by the Irish Trekkie, for instance, awesome channel, that there will be references and that Krall's motivation somehow goes back to Enterprise, but I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that twist with Edison, that he is Krall. So yeah, and every one of the crew, every member got something to do, and Chekhov was awesome and funny and smart and strong, and I thought that was kind of. It was so sad, because obviously Anton Yashin died, and it's weird to see it that way, but and the fact that they basically made Prime Spock die in order to acknowledge Leonard Nimoy's death, and that that photo of the original crew in the end. Yeah, you can say, how did Prime Spock have that photo on the jellyfish? But, well, come on. I mean, whatever. And the photo, I sat there like, oh, yeah. Through the whole film, I either said like, what? It had me on the edge of my seat, or I was just smiling because I was so happy to basically see a prolonged TOS episode or a prolonged TNG episode, just more polished in a visual style, and to finally feel like you're back in the Trek world. It really, I was smiling. It made me so happy. Like, oh, and the fact, and maybe I'm wrong on this, that at the end, you know, the credit, the credits, like the font of the credits, is the same, and it's the same font and also the same color as on the Next Generation. I thought, what? How does Justin Lin and Simon Pegg and the producers, they know about Next Generation, obviously, or maybe it's just coincidence, but I thought, hey, that was awesome. I didn't expect that. You know, it's tiny little lots and references that, you know, they do without stealing whole plot elements or without it feeling like a rip-off of previous movies or episodes. So that's fucking awesome. And yeah, and that whole conflict between the philosophies, basically, like Idris Elba or Krall or Edison saying that the Cindy War and the Romulan War, and, you know, Makos being on the starships is what made the Federation strong, and that's his world. And he probably already felt misplaced when, you know, the whole thing with the Makos was over and the Makos became integrated into Starfleet, and it became less of a military organization, but more of a scientific organization, Starfleet and Federation. And he already there, he felt misplaced, and because he was a military guy. So that conflict is interesting. And then, you know, with Kirk saying that, but his world is, you know, Federation and teamwork and all that stuff. That's interesting. And one last thing, the way it is shot, there are no lens flares. The way it's shot is 10,000 million times more creative than in the previous movies. And I need to wrap up because I only have 1 minute left. And the Enterprise A at the end, fabulous! They finally fixed those weird engine struts. It's incredible. So, you know, the designer Sean Hargreaves, he actually knows about and loves TOS. So that's fucking awesome. They finally fixed that. So, yeah, 2 thumbs up from me.